Jamie Dupree has been a radio news correspondent for over 30 years. He's covered politics in our nation's capital most of that time. And then 2 years ago, he lost his voice, the very tool that helped him make a living. Since then, he has been on a journey to get his voice and his old life back.
Let me say it this way. I think Chairman Gowdy's initial assessment is accurate.
When you've done something for 32 years, there's an automatic rhythm, one in which your feet know the way, because they've walked these sidewalks, these stairs, these hallways, thousands of times. It is this familiar routine in a career that breeds expertise and burnout. In Jamie Dupree's case, all he has ever wanted to do is exactly this.
Digging through all the details on healthcare reform.
A radio news correspondent for Cox Radio based in Washington, D.C.
That I didn't think he needed to do. He should just let it go.
Thank you all for being here. This is
Dupree has covered the United States Congress and politics under 6 different presidents. In the basement of the Russell Federal Building, Dupree and other journalists await politicians coming and going from the Capitol. Dupree doesn't ask Senator Lindsey Graham a question, and this is why.
Every day I get up and I hope that overnight it has solved.
2.5 years ago, this 55-year-old married dad of 3 kids lost his voice. 24 experts and thousands of miles traveled around the country later, he is still searching for answers and treatment that will work.
During the time, it got worse and worse and worse.
Dupree has flown to Atlanta to see neurologist Dr. Hyder Jinnah at Emory Brain Health.
All right, good. Open and close your hands for me. Just walk naturally. I'm just going to put my finger on your chin. I'm going to touch my finger with this. Touch your nose. Go back and forth. Stop right there.
Dupree does well on tests not involving speech.
Good. Come on back. I want you to say a few things for me. We mow our lawn every year.
No. We mow our lawn every year.
He has a problem that falls in the category of disorders known as the dystonias. Somehow the brain gets the signal wrong and it sort of overdoes the movement. So the muscles contract too strong, they occasionally go into spasm.
He had
Mr. Dupree, when he speaks, his tongue is doing way more than it should. It's contracting, it's going up, it's going out, it's going down, and it shouldn't be doing all that stuff.
Dystonia is the 3rd most common movement disorder behind tremor and Parkinson's disease. But Jamie's dystonia is rare and difficult to treat. Scientists know that dystonia begins in the regions of the brain involved in movement control. This motor circuit includes the motor cortex, cerebellum, and basal ganglia. Exactly where dystonia begins is not known. It can be genetic and sometimes triggered by an event. In Jamie's case, he got sick on a family vacation to England and says it morphed into a heart event and a trip to the ER when he got back home. After that, his voice faded away.
We believe that it's something you were born with, a tendency to be at risk for this. But you weren't going to develop the problem until you got exposed to something else, which could have been that virus. And then those two things together are what triggered the evolution of the problem. So it's not the virus by itself.
People like Dupree, who use their voice a lot, develop this type of dystonia more often. Again, it's a bit of a mystery, but it's something about repetitive use that can predispose things to go awry. An expert patient at this point, Dupree asked Dr. Jinnah for the bottom line.
Yeah, so the bottom line is that I would call this a segmental dystonia that involves your voice box, your pharynx, and probably your tongue and lips as well. And that this problem is challenging to treat with any of the available options. These options would include medicines, and there are a few others we could try. Botulinum toxin injections into the tongue, and deep brain stimulation surgery. So those are the 3 options that we would have that we might want to try.
Dupree opts to have botulinum toxin injections. The most common botulinum toxin is Botox. The injections will be in his tongue to try to relax and help with the thrusting.
It may help you.
Dr. Jenna has told him his chances of improvement are 50% or less.
But we certainly can't promise anything. When it's in your tongue, very hard to treat because the tongue is such a complicated muscle. We don't think about the tongue as a muscle, but it really is. It's a complicated muscle, and so to get the medicine exactly in the right place at the right dose is hard.
That just putting something in there helped you speak?
Toothpick.
Toothpick.
One. You know, if I get in there, it'll sort of move stuff around and I can hold my mouth maybe a different way and a little more out.
But something larger works even better?
No.
Okay.
I can have, you know, that and hold on to my glasses a little.
It's clear Dupree would prefer to be telling a story, not be the subject of it. But privacy and Washington, D.C. politics do not coexist. Dupree says he was deeply moved when lawmakers spoke of his struggle on the floor of the House.
Mr. Speaker, Jamie Dupree is a perfect example of the positive role that devoted and professional journalists play in our free society, and I wish him and his family all the best during this most difficult time. Thank you, Jamie. Godspeed.
He wants his voice back for his job. He desperately needs it back for his life.
And then my daughter Elizabeth, Henry, Ted, how hard say their name the right way.
In our interview, Dupree holds a marker between his teeth. It helps to control his tongue so he can speak, to describe life as a husband and father who must fight for each word.
Anyone who has children, you want to talk to them and give them advice and help. It's hard to do when you go, yes, no, oh, wow, well.
He has learned to trick his misfiring brain.
Yeah, you know, if I try to talk like a muppet, I can get a little more out.
But it never works for long. There is one tiny area of his life that has improved.
My golf game has improved by 2 shots a year. Why? Well, I don't talk to anyone that I'm playing with, so I'm more focused.
WSB Washington correspondent Jamie Dupree.
One thrilling development is Jamie 2.0. A Scottish company sifted through years of his archived audio and built a voice. He writes his stories, and his new voice delivers them. He is back on the airwaves.
Maryland, as the justices left open the underlying issue of the partisan drawing of legislative district lines.
Be sure and check out Jamie's blog at WSBRadio.com, where you can also read more about Jamie's new voice. WSB News Time coming up on the 11:01. We have 82 degrees on Peachtree Street. Hot and muggy.
Feel good?
Damn, that's good. That's good.
Still, the most painful moments can come from trying to do the simplest things, like talk to a friend.
I call, every once in a while, I call a friend on the phone, and they can't believe that I'm calling them. And I get off the phone and I cry, because all I want to do is talk. And the odd part is that when I cry, I talk better.
Jamie returns to Atlanta 6 weeks later for the first set of injections.
The muscles that push your tongue out are actually deep in your mouth, under your tongue, so we usually actually just go right up in here, and we can get to the tongue that way.
All right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Give it a try. I am going to attach a little device here that helps us measure and listen to muscles as we're going through. You're okay. You can just leave your hands right where they are.
Just a few minutes later, it's done.
And that's it.
Cool.
How you doing?
Oh, fine. Now, wait. And I hope.
8 weeks later in Washington, D.C.,
No different. No. There was no miracle, but I never thought there would be one.
the first injections were conservative to make sure he could tolerate the botulinum toxin. Dupree returns to Atlanta again, this time for more. The results are no better.
Have you ever worried that this is going to be the rest of your life?
Look, what am I supposed to do? Curl up in the corner? Give up? I got 3 kids. Got a wife. It's not my, I am not gonna give up.
Not giving up means still coaching his son's baseball team and being a dad and husband and working. In the Senate Radio TV gallery, Dupree runs into longtime colleague Ann Ball.
I've had to be resilient, and sometimes I think about you and gain strength from you.
Good.
You know?
There is no time for self-pity or despair. There are press conferences to attend, politicians to track down, and stories to be written in a tiny cubby filled with gear and memorabilia from yesteryear. But it gets the job done, like Jamie Dupree. Things have changed, not all for the better, but he is still here, and he will not give up the search for his voice.